And we are live. What is going on, everyone? And welcome back to the Star Wars Exchange's final Mandalorian after show. Thank God. We are here reviewing the episode and the season, I suppose, with our good buddy Parks. Parks, how you going today?
I am positively swell. Don't know why those were the words that left my mouth just now, but deal with it. No, I'm great. I'm happy you guys have had me on once again for another Star Wars finale. I'll reveal this to Mike because I don't suppose there will be another opportunity to do this anytime soon. But I very nearly came on today as another Obi-Wan Kenobi style
It was close.
intro,
We almost pulled
where
it
I was
off.
going to appear as the Mandalorian. I was going to come onto the scene with my boy Grogu here, and I was going to wear one of those.
Sorry, Parks. That's not his name, all right? His name is Din Grogu.
Din Grogu. I was going to come on the scene with Din Grogu here, and I was going to be wearing one of those really cheap, like $10 Mandalorian masks with the little eye holes very clearly visible, and I was going to fire a Nerf gun at the stream, and yeah, I was going to go from there, but I decided not to because I actually didn't get to go out to the store and buy said Mandalorian mask earlier, so that didn't happen. But the trade-off is that you get this cool shirt that I got at Celebration, where I am now one of the prisoners of Narkina 5, and I'm on program, and I can't swim, and I'm not watching Andor. I'm watching Mandalorian. You know.
Wow. But poor you.
But yeah, so I'm happy to be here.
Yes,
and I'm ready to talk about Mandalorian.
Very nice.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
And I'll introduce. I don't know why. I'll introduce myself since Ari.
Yeah, so I was about to say I'd completely.
It's okay. I'm Mike. I'm also a co-host on this podcast, whether Ari likes to admit so or not. But I'm a co-host on here. Parks. I wouldn't wear that too often because people on Twitter will yell at you because they say it's some weird thing. You know, dressing up as a prisoner.
There's some weird people on Twitter.
There's some weird people.
When has there never been? Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm one of them probably. So.
Very much so.
No, Mike, how are you going today? It's good to have you.
No, I'm doing great. It's been a busy day, but I'm happy to sit down and talk one last Mando episode. And you know, this morning I woke up to a lot of people screaming at me and Ari about our opinions about the show, and I'm just
your comment section was a war zone. I saw that,
and
I've never seen a more like a comment zone of people aggressively arguing from literally every single angle.
Yep. But Parks, it's funny because you usually are in our comment section. It's very peaceful down there. There's 4, 5, 6 comments. Just great podcast today, guys. Like this, like that. Didn't like this. That was great. But like Mike, I woke up this morning as well just to a war. I was in the trenches down there.
Hey, look on the bright side. It's your most viewed video. So
very true.
we didn't realize that, and
I do wish.
And let's just start off this stream the way it should be started, because I've been declared a hero. So thanks, and apologies are in order. So anyone that wants to send their apologies, you can DM me at @StarWars_exchange, or you can put it in this comment section, or you can just DM Mike as well. Ari was right. That's also all good. Or my brother, you can DM him, or just most people on Instagram. Go for it too.
This is why your brother doesn't listen to the pod anymore.
Yeah. Thanks, Shane. No, for real though. Keen to get into this one. Obviously, very contentious. But I just want to start off like this because I think there's differing opinions in the chat on the podcast. If you liked The Mandalorian Season 3, good for you. Well done. Glad it was good. If you didn't, that's okay as well. You don't have to like it. You can have whatever opinion you want, and you are welcome here to discuss however you feel. Obviously, no name calling, nothing like that. If you like it, awesome. If you don't, that's cool. Let's talk about it. So let's start off the conversation, shall we? Obviously, real quick, me and Mike did do a little reaction video. You can check that out after this stream. But we'll go more in depth. Let's start off with Parks though. How are you feeling about Mando Season 3 and the finale? Did it top off it well or no?
So this season of The Mandalorian, I mean, I've been on your podcast 3 times this season, and I'd say in those 3 appearances, well, including this one now, I've really gone on a very big journey with this show. I came off at the start really stoked about what it was doing I think Mike felt very similarly, in that, you know, we really enjoyed the first episode. The second episode, we were going to Mandalore. We saw the Mythosaur, put us in a very promising direction. I think at that point in time, like, the story of the season was still very open ended, and it could have gone in a variety of directions. Once it started going in the direction that it was going in, was when I think, you know, I was starting to have some problems with it. I think episode 4 and 5 were starting to lose me, and then 6 really was just, um, probably the absolute low point of my experience with the show, for a variety of reasons. Um, Least of which Jack Black and Lizzo. They were fantastic. I loved seeing them. But yeah, that episode was not what everyone's agree to disagree are, as you said earlier. But that, you know, that episode wasn't everyone's cup of tea, and you know, it was a strange sort of progression for the story. But I really enjoyed last week's episode, and this week's episode. I honestly like this finale for season 3. I honestly enjoyed it quite a bit, um, in the way that I might enjoy a video game I play late at night with my brain turned off. On the first time I watched it, the ending felt really hollow to me, and um, I I mean, there I liked the ending, but it just, there was an underlying hollow feeling to it that to me felt like a result of sort of the journey leading up to this point. And at that point, I sort of had to take a step back. And I not before going on a tweet storm earlier about the season, but I had to sort of take a step back and just sort of taken some perspectives beyond my own about, um, you know, the direction the season was taken in, and you know, I have my problems, and I can't deny I had a negative experience with the season. But um as I was talking to you guys about this, I was just earlier, I was on made a very brief appearance on the All New Nerds podcast. I just tuned in, and they're like, "You want to be on the show?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And they all had very positive takeaways from this season and very positive experience at the finale. And it was honestly really good that I was there to hear their perspective, because it has me sort of going, "Oh, huh." Like, I think I agree with some of the more positive responses to where this is. So, and even then, I had some great conversations on Twitter with a few people earlier, in DMs, and just in general messages, that were adding some genuine depth to certain storytelling points, for this season and for this finale, that again made me appreciate it even more. And um, I think, you know, my favorite Star Wars stories, the ones I'm most attached to, are the ones that hit me the hardest the first time I watched it. But I could see myself coming to the season in the future with a really positive experience potentially. And so that's something I hope, you know, we'll sort of be able to navigate over the course of this fun little chat we're gonna have tonight. But I'd have to say, long story short, had fun with the finale. Some things I was disappointed by, but I can acknowledge sort of the positive intentions behind certain parts of it. So, um, yeah, it is what it is, as they say.
It is what it is. Sorry, Mike was muted. Yeah, it is what it is. Well, let's keep the ball rolling then, Mike. Get into it, son.
You see how nice that is that I click the on StreamYard and I'm not doing this? That's how Ari sounds every single week.
All right, fair enough.
It lets you know he's on.
Control D or
thank you.
Or click.
Exactly. All right. So I just want to say hi to everyone in the chat. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Let us know what you thought of the episode, because we will be reading your comments. Anyways, also hello Darth Leakin, I see you. So with this episode, I've had some time to think about it, and I think I'm a little bit even more frustrated than I was last night. You know, I feel like finales are supposed to be like a rewarding experience for watching the entire thing. Hey Matt, welcome Matt. Hey Con.
Hello Matt.
Hey everybody.
Hello Con.
I love Matt. Is he a friend of yours?
I've followed Matt for quite some time on Twitter because he watches my videos and regularly interacts with me, and works on some cool stuff himself
Yes, he does.
as a game developer. So
he's a friend of ours now.
He's a friend of ours, Parks. Thank you for the
shout out Matt.
Shout out Matt.
And shout out Matt.
Oh my god, you killed Din Grogu.
Huh?
Well, with that being said,
if that's what we're doing.
Parks, your turn.
No,
Come on.
I'm not
see that
throwing
guy.
him.
I see Din Grogu sitting
All right,
behind you.
get this back on the road. Come on.
All right, Mike.
Enough throwing stuff around. Come on,
Mike,
no tantrums yet.
let's get mad.
Look, if you like the finale, awesome. All the power to you. For me, respectively, there's just, like I said, it's supposed to be a rewarding experience, and it doesn't have to be everything that, because people in the comments that were yelling at me were saying, "Oh, you guys had so many expectations and stuff," and I was just like, I told Ari, he was like, "Oh, I got my Mandel socks rocked up for today," and I was like, because he's pumped. Can you stop doing that? Thank you. With the
sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, it's habit of the Star Wars exchange. But so anyways, and I was just like, honestly, I don't even know if I'm hyped. I think I just want to, I just want to, like, whatever they throw at me, I'm just ready to. I don't want to get my expectations too high, is what I told Ari. I literally have no expectations. I just hope that whatever story they're telling, whether I'm a fan of it or not, they put a nice cap on it. And this was just all over the place. It felt very messy. It felt very uncreative. We've been since 2019 on this trail of what Moff Gideon wants with Grogu, and we're curious, and there's like breadcrumbs, and the excitement is kind of building up. And this season they kind of just dropped it a little, and then the scientist was back, and it's like, all right, we got the role going again. And then it just, like, whether you liked the review or not of Gideon cloning himself, it was the whole fact that he said it in a line and we moved on. And that's what the Mandalorian does this entire season. It's just these one-line bombers that we just don't have any space to like. People are like, "Oh yeah, the runtime. Oh, you guys want longer doesn't mean better." No, but it gives us time to breathe and relish in those moments that we could be like, "Oh, okay, maybe another line on that could have revealed something else." Not in the sense of like something tied specifically to lore, but what you're talking about. Why Moff Gideon? What's your plan with this? Could you give us a little more exposition? And there's just nothing there. And I'm being so honest, I was a fan of this season. Go listen to the previous podcast episodes and all the ratings that I would give. I just loved a lot of this season. Am I a fan where it was going? No. But what they were giving me up until the Lizzo and Jack Black episode, I was just like, man, I'm ready to talk Mando this week. I love what we ate this week, and I would bring that perspective. And this finale did not cut it for me. And people want to be like, "Oh, you Star Wars fans, you guys are being so negative." God. It's so annoying. It's like, we can sit here and
Mike, just like it, just like the show. See, why can't you just like it
and love it? We can sit here and love it, and no one will say one thing. But the minute you disagree or say, "Oh, that didn't work for me," people want to throw up in arms and want to be mad at you. And it's like, great, it did it. It worked for you. It didn't for me. And there's valid reasons. You do all this work with Bocatan this season, all this work where she even takes the light away from Mando, which, whatever, fine. You want to do that this year? Fine, whatever. You give all the attention to Bocatan. She gets all the seasoning, all the flavors. Then whenever he speaks, he's talking out of his rear end, because we don't understand what the hell he's saying. He finally had a good line last week where he said, "I will follow you until your song is written." Great. Awesome. That's like season 2, season 1 Mando. Yeah. But it's like, you give Bo-Katan all this attention, and bravo to Katie Sackhoff, because she carried this season. She carried the hell out of this season. But let me just tell you, you finally...
Not heavy of a load, but sure.
You get to the final end with Bo-Katan, it's like, oh, she gets to have her moment. She gets to have her moment with Moff Gideon. She gets to redeem herself, reclaim Mandalore. That's just, I'll take away from her. It's like, do I care about the Darksaber all that much? Not really. I think it's a cool lore thing. I love all the attention that's paid to the Darksaber. But at the same time, if they want to get rid of it, okay, cool. but it was just done in a way that was just disrespected Bo-Katan and whatever character they were building with her this season. I think Star Wars Explained said it best on his video. He was like, they never let Bo-Katan decide anything for herself this season. Yep. She was indicted into this damn cult. She had no say in it. The armor told her to take her helmet off. She took it off because the armor told her to. She never made that choice for herself, and she never had that choice with at the end there with Moff Gideon for anything. She didn't even have a moment to say anything about the Darksaber or have a moment with her people and be like, have a cool final speech. Just nothing. So am I disappointed? Yeah, because I feel that they just gave us fluff, and anything that they directed towards us was just, I don't know. It's like, yay, we got a cool battle sequence. I actually love the battle sequence a lot. That was really cool. But everything else, I really do not care about.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I'm with you, Mike. I'm with you. Like, I think I'm less frustrated just because I've sort of been there for a month now. I feel like, in terms of like, I just felt like this whole season's been like this. And I did wear my Mando socks yesterday, but I never thought the finale would be good. And it hurts to say that because me and Mike were actually talking about like how we rank ratings and how our like what number means what sort of type thing. And I was saying anything below 5 for me, it's got to be so horrible. It has got to absolutely fail on all levels. And not that The Mandalorian fails on all levels, but it's like a 4 out of 10 season 3. Man, yeah, it is the most disappointing piece of Star Wars content that I think we've got. At least I'm only about to be 20. Since I was like actively following everything since I was about like, I don't know, 12 or so. It's the most disappointed I've been by any piece of Star Wars. It is so uninspired. It's crazy. Jon Favreau doesn't even know what he has to say anymore. Like, I'm sorry, but the thing that annoyed me the most about this episode is that we're really going to leave it off still listening to the armorer, the cult leader, the crazy cult leader that has, because she says that Din and Grogu are father and son now, it's official. It's like, no, that's not for the armorer to decide. That's for Din and Grogu to decide. If they feel that way, then that should be how it is because it's found family. Who is the armorer, this crazy extremist cult leader, to make that decision for them? Like, I know the armorer's sort of come around a bit and she's become more accepting of others. And it's like, if you guys want to wear your helmet still, that's cool. You know, they're allowed to do that. But I honestly think they only made that choice because Pedro Pascal couldn't make it to the set. And that I fully admit that's a tinfoil hat theory, but I think we would have seen, if it was up to Jon Favreau writing the show, Pedro Pascal's face would have been seen in season 3. But I don't think that was up to him. Season 3 is just a mess. It is a train wreck, honestly, on every front. With you talk about like, and not to get into the Gina Carano stuff, but because I think Lucasfilm made the right choice there. However, if they needed more time after making that decision, they should have taken more time, because I think that was one of many things, such as Pedro Pascal's schedule, that conflicted with telling the story they wanted to tell. Not that they even really had a story they wanted to tell, it seems like. I just felt like there was no direction. There was no substance. I never felt any like, never had any emotional investment in anything going on in the story. The heart of the show, to me, is the characters of Din and Grogu. That is the heart of the show. And they honestly went missing this season. I don't know where they went. I know they're around, but it's like, man, I told this to Mike on the phone earlier. I have so much to say, but also nothing to say at the same time, because I mean, I'm sort of done complaining about it. I really don't want to be that person that just constantly complains and complains and complains. But yeah, I just, like, in a way, I feel like I've said my piece. We get it, but I mean, we're on the podcast. I'm going to talk about it, obviously. But like, yeah, I don't vibe with it at all. I don't think there was. It's like, I do understand that, you know, some people like it, but honestly, I want to hear why, because I'm genuinely baffled how people are enjoying this, because it just feels like 2 grown men playing with action figures. And I'm like, that's cool for some people.
Parks.
Great. But for me, I'm just like, no, I'm sorry. I don't want to watch that. I watched that stuff when I was 6 years old. I'm too old for that now. And like throwing that sort of Star Wars into bits and pieces of like the Clone Wars and Rebels, I think is great. But when that's your whole season, it's an F. So
look,
that's my thoughts.
I'll just say this, Parks. I feel sorry for Parks because while we were both ranting and venting, Parks was just sitting there being like, "Why did I sign up to be on every finale with them?" I'm so sorry, so sorry. Look,
oh boy, I'm catching some collateral from the toxic Star Wars part of the fandom here. But thanks, Ari. No, I'm kidding. I know you are a disappointed Star Wars fan, but you love Star Wars, and there's no, and I know that because I've done so many of these with you. I know you guys love Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're totally valid in so many of the sort of places you're coming from, and I mean, I will say, like, you know, I prefaced at the beginning of this by saying, you know, I've spent a good bit of the afternoon, evening here looking at sort of different takes on the show and looking at a lot of positive takes. And that doesn't mean I've read them and now I agree with them, but it definitely has given me perspective of like, okay, like I can kind of see some validity in that. And I think if there's something that I totally agree with you on, it's that I think the season, in terms of its storytelling, felt very inconsistent throughout. Sort of the intention of a story decision didn't always point north, I guess, to speak a bit figuratively. Like, you know, I think early on, you know, we went to Mandalore, and part of that was Din getting redeemed, but and you know, there was the mythosaur, but at that point it's like, well, where is this leading now? Like, yes, we went to Mandalore, but that doesn't necessarily mean Mandalore is the ultimate end goal of this season. You know, and Bo-Katan gets inducted into the convert, you know, and so it's like, oh, well, maybe this is about Bo-Katan's journey and her getting to the point where she's going to be ready to go towards Mandalore. And then we had the Foundling, and we had a big emphasis on Grogu that episode, and it's, oh, maybe this season's going to be about sort of Grogu's journey, like a coming of age and becoming Mandalorian, and maybe that's going to confront Din with sort of an interesting reflection on, do I want my son to become a Mandalorian or whatever? And then with episode 5 at the end, where, you know, Armor's like, you walk two worlds, you know, you're going to unite our people. It's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're doing that now. And the Armor has never talked before about the importance of uniting Mandalore. Sorry, she's never talked before about the importance of living on Mandalore. It's to the Watch, being on Mandalore doesn't make you Mandalorian. Following the way makes you Mandalorian. But to Bo-Katan and to her ilk of Mandalorians, being on Mandalore makes you a Mandalorian. So there was never a character beat that we saw on screen where we saw the Armor saw something that maybe made her reconsider, other than perhaps an underlying implication that seeing Bo-Katan, you know, someone from this completely different sect of Mandalorians, devote herself to the ways of the Watch so willingly, demonstrates perhaps the potential to unite two worlds of Mandalorians. But that's an underlying implication. That's not something that was strongly communicated through the storytelling. So then at that point, it becomes, okay, we're uniting all Mandalorians. And then we go to Mandalore and we've conquered Mandalore. A lot of things happened very quickly. And I would dare say the critique that we speed ran through plot events that were sort of, you know, queued up for the future of the Mandalorian in just this one season of television. And yeah, I would have liked, as you guys say, longer runtime. I mean, that just extends to this whole entire story. I would have liked to see the retaking of Mandalore be a 2-season thing rather than a 1-season thing, mostly because there is a lot of nuance to be explored about why Mandalorians are so divided and why do they have such a hard time wrapping their mind around, say, the ways of the Watch versus the ways of like the Night Owls or whomever. That is a topic that, you know, begs for exploration. It begs for nuance. It begs for character work, because you have to understand why someone like Axe Woves is like, no, I don't, you know, I don't like the Watch. Like I'll never do it. You know, even if it's as simple as, I grew up as a Mandalorian of this kind, and that's why I'm not going to like go to your side. Even if that was the reasoning, like that is still like, it justifies telling the story if you're going to explore that. But we're not, you know, we're cutting to like the part afterward where they're united. Mind you, last week we had bits where, you know, we saw they weren't in total agreement, but we weren't exploring that disagreement super well. And the closest we got to that was a scene with Din and Grogu talking on the bridge about, I care about character, I care about loyalty. Or not Din and Grogu, sorry, Din and Bocatan. If I said Din and Grogu's not, all he would say in that conversation is yes or no. Yeah, and so that was a good acknowledgement of that. But then, here we are at the end, and there's so much to be said about now we have Mandalore. What do we do? What does this mean for our people? What does this mean for the watch? What does this mean? And these are all things that the story could explore in the future, but it feels like afterthoughts in the grand scheme of how the season concluded. And so that aspect of the season is very frustrating, that we are fumbling through all these storytelling ideas and points, maybe with good intention along the way, maybe with underlying purpose. But we are nonetheless, cutting past a lot of drama, a lot of character work, a lot of conflict that makes storytelling interesting to follow. Right. So that is an element that I would definitely agree with you on, Ari.
For sure.
Yeah. And by the way, just real quick on my thoughts specifically, I didn't prepare an essay or anything, so I apologize if that was a bit of word vomit. I know that I wasn't probably cohesively getting that across. But yeah, Mike, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I think we should read some comments in the chat.
Absolutely. I'm gonna scroll up to the top and just if I can get there and just say hi to everyone who's in here. So hi to Ticket Dog, Khan, Austin, Matt, Isaac, if you're still around. Appreciate all of you tuning in. Will there be pizza? Yes, there will be. Just cause Mod 5 standing by. Let's go. Shout out to Isaac as well because he's tuning in for the first time.
Hi, Isaac.
Isaac.
Do we?
Welcome.
Isaac gave his rating for the episode. Should we give our ratings or should we hold off until later?
Maybe here's a fun thing we can do if I can propose this.
Sure.
Yes.
Give a rating now, and let's see if it changes by the very end.
All right.
Okay.
I like that. Mike, you go first.
Definitely not my least favorite episode of the season. It's just I'm a little upset because it is the finale, and like a finale needs a good cap on what the season is about. Does like Bad Batch? Obviously very sad and open ending, but it still put a cap on what was going on with the characters. For me, this didn't deliver. It felt like half-baked lasagna. I still like parts of it. Parts of the lasagna I did like, but there was just not anything in there that I was like, oh yeah, I love this. Fulfilled a lot of my the action sequences. Oh my god, when Bocatan was flying in with her Darksaber and she was just swinging around, I got chills. Like that was very cool. And Grogu hopping around the lights and with the Praetorian guards, that was just funny and cute and still at the same time it felt a little bit something with a little bit of stakes. I think if anything that moment had the most stakes because I'm like, what is going to happen here? So it was really cool to see that comparison to someone like Kylo and Rey fighting them or later versions of them or whatever. But it was a cool, cute moment. A lot of goofiness in this episode, not in a good way. Gideon was tracking Mando and couldn't tell that he was in his cloning tanks. That's crazy. Anyways, there's just, like Ari said, there's a lot to say that I have to say, but nothing at all at the same time. I'm gonna have to give this like as a standalone episode, I'd probably give it like maybe like a 6 out of 10. Or maybe even a 6.5, but as a finale, like this is what it is. It's a finale. I'm gonna have to give it like a 4 out of 10.
Yeah. Also, I reckon let's rank the season as well.
The season 6.5 out of 10.
Yep. All right. Parks.
This
6 out of 10. Sorry.
This finale, I'd probably do a 7 out of 10 or a 6, leaning towards 7. And then I think the season would be probably the same, 6 or a 7, leaning towards a 7.
Yeah. I think I already said mine earlier, but the episode in itself is probably a 5 out of 10 for me, and the season is probably a 4. Yeah, harsh, but fair.
We live in reality.
We do. Some of our chat members, Matt says today's episode 5, season 3, 4. Exactly what I just said. Cool. Khan says I say today's episode is 6.5 and the season around 6.5 or 7. Yeah, similar to Parks on that one. What's up, Shane? Good to have you in here. Austin again.
Woohoo!
Unhinged Ari. Yeah, I think we've already had enough of that. Hopefully,
You threw something earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't erase that.
What's up, Orion? Yeah, we are positively swelling here for sure. Yeah, it would have been.
Oh yeah, Parks. I love your new camera angle. Very nice.
Thank you. I was telling Ari I rearranged my room earlier because I don't know. I get like in a slump if my room is the same for too long, and the easiest way to sort of refresh myself is literally to rearrange the whole room.
Love that.
So I did that.
If I had a bigger room and I had smaller furniture in here, I would definitely do that like every other week.
I mean, the bed didn't move at all, the TV didn't move at all, but everything else did. So.
Oh, you're right, man. Yeah, I need after this experience. I think I need even though my room would probably be a disaster if I move things around. I need to change the vibe up in here. Yeah. Let's read. Joel says,
let's go to Joel Davis. Yeah.
Okay. He says, okay, let's ask the real questions. Why is the season the way it is? Is Favreau just not a good writer? Behind the scenes shenanigans, a mix of both? This is a really good question. Parks, I'm gonna throw it to you. What do you think? There's rumors that Kathleen Kennedy and Pedro Pascal were not getting along. And supposedly it's coming from a valid source who has gotten things right in the past before, but we weren't there. We don't know. It's a rumor. Until we hear something else, but it's a rumor for now. But what do you think? Because Pedro wasn't even at Celebration London to promote this, and maybe Pedro was also busy filming other stuff like The Last of Us that he couldn't really be on set this season.
Probably the number one reason he wasn't on set. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts? Why was this season not on the level of maybe like seasons 1 and 2?
So I think, boy, there's a lot of things to pull into this. Just for one, like my opinion of Favreau's writing going into this season was he is generally a pretty good writer. Like he wrote the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, which are not perfectly written shows by any means. And I'd say whatever the writing, like whatever is lacking in the writing in those first 2 seasons, like the really stellar direction picks that up a lot. And he didn't write all of the first 2 seasons either. Dave Filoni wrote a few episodes. Rick Famuyiwa wrote a few episodes. His sort of writing assistant Noah Clore helped him with a few things, and Noah Clore was the only other writer I think credited this season with the 3rd episode. And then there's another writer, I forget his name, but he did a little bit of writing for Star Wars Rebels, and he was involved in season 1.
I'm pretty sure Dave Filoni was listed for 1 episode, right?
For writing?
I think for the 4th, wasn't he?
He wrote the Jedi, and then he wrote the Gunslinger in season 1.
I thought his name was listed on the 4th episode. Maybe.
For this season?
Yeah.
Oh, what was episode 4? The Foundling? You're probably right about that.
The one where they saved Paz Vizsla's son. I can't believe I just said that.
And Kelleran Beck saved Grogu. So you got that.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So for every negative is a positive, but I'm gonna be that guy tonight. But no, but then obviously this season, like I think the writing has been the problem with it in a lot of regards. The direction being quite the opposite. The direction has been incredible this season, I think. I think Peter Ramsey's direction in The Pirate was great, and Rick Famuyiwa was probably the best director of the season, and his Mandalorian action in these 2 episodes was just so fun to watch. But where, we get into like why the season was the way it is and stuff like that, I think it's important to keep at least 2 things in mind. One, this season was written after The Mandalorian kind of took off in its terms of popularity. The first 2 seasons were written back to back. This season was written, after The Mandalorian was a thing and it was out there, and people, had their own sort of memes about Grogu and Din and, all that stuff. And I guess the other thing would be, this was most likely written during COVID, or at least during that period. Book of Boba Fett, I think, was more so written like in the onset of COVID. But this is still sort of in that period, of written during that. And all I can say is, I feel like there have been a lot of writers over the last 2-3 years who because of COVID, have confessed that they don't feel as creative. They don't feel like they've written as well. Their mind is a jumble. And I feel like we can all relate to that as well in our own way with whatever we're doing. So you have that. Then there's some other elements where it's like, okay, you had Grogu reunited with Din very quickly in the Book of Boba Fett, which Favreau wrote. And that, was a very puzzling decision. It felt like there had not been enough time between them. And shout out to Austin in the chat, not just because you said yes, Parks, but just because I remembered you made an Instagram post about this a few weeks ago that I really liked, where you sort of proposed this idea that it's possible that the reason Grogu was reunited with Din as quickly as he was, bearing in mind that there was no question these characters were going to reunite eventually, just a period of time had to pass in which, we got to see how these characters functioned with distance from each other and without each other, and how did that affect their dynamic before bringing them back together. And then this season, Grogu has had more agency and he's been more of a character this season, which is really nice, but also like it's definitely been his role in the season has been very inconsistent, where we have story for Grogu, we have things to do for Grogu when we can come up with them, and there's not really a general overall purpose for this character like there was in the first 2 seasons. And so that sort of begs, like, that is where you sort of get into the more conspiracy territory of, okay, there's no Mandalorian, there's no like, what's the word I'm trying to get at? It is extremely popular. Like, this is one of the most popular shows in the world, at least leading up to this season. And Grogu makes money. He does. Like, every kid has one of these in their home. That's just to demonstrate. You guys have Grogu bobbleheads on your desk. Like, he's very popular.
Not anymore.
He's
Ari.
in the trash now.
He's in the trash.
No, you don't have a Grogu bobblehead on your desk. You have a Din Grogu bobblehead on your desk.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So yeah, so the theory is that, there's a higher up Disney executive who was like, hey, what are you doing, Jon Favreau? Put Grogu back in the story. Like he sells. Right. Like, people are going to be wondering why he's not there. And I think that's valid, and I think that affected part of this. One more thing I'd like to throw in is, I guess one more thing, and then I'll put the conclusion to that, the bow on that thought, is that the way The Mandalorian is made, and this applies to the first 2 seasons as much as I'm sure it applies here, is the episodic nature of the show isn't just like an aesthetic or like a creative approach. It is the show has been built from the ground up to support an episodic storytelling approach. And I say that because the way the first 2 seasons were created were, let's bring in all the episodic directors at the start. They are going to previs their episodes and they're going to work on them in tandem. Basically, these directors, the pipeline for an episode of The Mandalorian is closer to how an episode in Star Wars animation is made than it is to how other live action shows are made, because they are coming in and they're prevising a lot of the episode, which is usually practiced on an animation, but they're doing that here. And they're kind of spearheading the whole thing. And most of them are working pretty distinct from one another. In season 1, like, the process was a bit more collaborative because so many of those directors had episodes on Navarro. So they would do like assistant directing on each other's episodes. But I feel like this season, just based on how the directors were set up, it was Rick Famuyiwa kind of assumed that collaborative role that the directors would usually work together on with in the first season. Basically, he was doing all of that, all of the core story stuff. Rick Famuyiwa was handling all of that, which is why he got the executive producer role. Otherwise, every other episode done by another director kind of had to function as an episodic piece, which is a problem when the story you're trying to tell overall concerns this building plot about uniting Mandalorians to go take Mandalore. It's a plot that demands like more coherency between all the stories, yet the structure of the show and how these episodes are produced is so fiercely rooted in this episodic structure that you invariably have what feels like an episode where you have the fun pirate battle in the middle, but then you have important story beat at the start and important story beat at the end, and you didn't get anything in the middle relevant to those things. But we need those things. We need to sandwich it because that's how we progress the story. It was the same thing in episode 3 with the convert. It was, it's just that's my general theory. And also it could just be that, we're dealing with something more plot heavy and Jon Favreau isn't totally skilled with it. But that's the most elaborate, like, a la carte explanation I could offer to that big question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I hope that answered your question, Joel Davis. I think that was from.
Sorry, I took the talking stick and didn't give it back there. Sorry.
But yeah, there's theories to be had there. I think. I mean, there's so many things that go into it too. Because also, what was up? Maybe it was rushed too. Because what was up with the editing? The editing, I don't know if they switched editors out, but the editing for these episodes, even if to something as small as the transition between scenes, was bad. Like at most, like when I notice a transition between scenes, that's when I know it's like, who edited this? Like this is not just there's no like smooth transitions. It'd be like immediately like you know how we have like the Star Wars swipes or the circles and the transition frames or whatever. There was moments in this season, so many throughout, where it was just like we were doing one thing and then it just swipes and now there's a ship flying and it's like I just feel like I was just thrown into the next scene rather than it being like this smooth transition that I think seasons 1 and 2 did so well. And when I don't notice a transition in Star Wars, that's great. Like the swipes just go on with the story. And for some reason, it just would be like, okay, next thing. It's like if I was watching a slideshow presentation, it'd be like, next thing. And I can go back to people can go back to the episode and pick out there's a whole bunch of moments, especially with Bocatan. Like she'll be speaking and be like, "No, I'm gonna walk," and then it flies throws us into the next scene, and I'm like, "Who edited this?" Even as Joe was saying in the chat here, like Gambit Production says, "Agreed, Mike. With the editing in this finale was jarring, to be honest. Just utterly baffling. Some of the editing choices they made. Right? No, absolutely. Yeah. And even the end or episode, I say, but it was the Coruscant one." You don't think they could have like spliced up moments to move the Din and Bo-Katan story forward? We could have gotten a whole bunch of new details, even if it was just mad, because most of the action was taking place on Coruscant with the scientists and the formal or the Imperial spy. Something came, so it's like most of the action was happening there. We couldn't have a moment, like some down moments with Din and Bo-Katan, maybe just on the ship flying back talking about whatever. Maybe like I can't believe Satine hasn't even been referenced. I'm not all about those references and cameos, but I think we needed a whole bunch of context too, because I'm sure Mandalorian, as we just talked about, brought in a whole bunch of new fans and everything, and it was a very popular show. How many of them have seen Clone Wars? I bet you we're in the minority. So it's like I would have loved that there was just context to things. I love when Bocatan was talking about flying the cliffs with her father, or being brought down to the mine, or to specific parts of Mandalore with her father when she was a kid. I wish we got more moments like that in the 3rd episode, and it could have been spliced up between some of the parts in the Coruscant stuff, because it was literally like, and that goes to the editing and the writing process, where it's like, okay, we're gonna sandwich this. Bo-Katan and Din are gonna start the episode with this amazing, like the most amazing live action space fighter fight that we've ever seen happen on screen. That was I still go back to this day and watch that. That is great. The music was great and the scenes were just great. Mando jumping out of that gauntlet, flying down, and the music that carries that. Oh, it's great. Anyways, we have that amazing scene, and then they start the title sequence, and then they go to Coruscant, or the story goes to Coruscant. It feels like a chapter out of the New Republic, canned New Republic show. And we're just there dealing with the scientists that we ended up getting. Maybe it's setting stuff for later, but I don't care about later. I care about now. I care about the story now. It's like you can set things up for the future, but don't forget about your story now. Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like they did that episode. It was just like, let's just let's just move Din and Bocatan one tile up in the story, just one. We're not gonna really move a lot of the increments of the story. We're just gonna move that Grogu staying
Just
down.
gonna move Grogu
staying
again.
down. Then Grogu staying down. Anyways,
Yeah, he better.
and it further advanced with whatever they're doing with the New Republic and stuff. And it's like, great, I care about that stuff, but not right now.
Yeah.
So I feel like if they spliced it up and gave us a lot of more meat with Din and Bo-Katan, that would have even been better. That would have made it worthwhile. But it just turned out to be like, what happens with the scientists now? Are we gonna get like an episode next season where it just focuses on him again? What's going on?
Man, honestly, I'm telling you, this whole season could have just been a black screen, empty void. But then there was a post-credit scene on the finale, and people would fall in love with it. Be like, "Oh man, but Skeleton Crew is gonna be so good," or whatever. And also, Mike, I just want to point out something with what you said is like with a mention of Satine. It's like that's not just a reference. Like that would be totally interesting for someone that didn't know to be like, "Oh my god, this girl's sister used to be the ruler of Mandalore, but she didn't wear armor, anything like that." Like that's very interesting information to someone that doesn't know that. I would have thought at least. And it provides a lot of context to why Bo-Katan is important to the story of Mandalore and why she's sort of she's not just some random lady that once owned the Darksaber. It's like she has connections and that she's important to the context of the story around Mandalore.
As I want to say, as much as I love the Clone Wars and I love Satine, and she is relevant to all this because like her being a piece leading a pacifist sort of rule for Mandalore is in response to its violent warrior past. And I think there's something to be said, if we're talking about sort of the balance of, what Mandalore needs to be, there's maybe something to be learned from that past as well. I will say, I don't think you need to mention her only because like you talk about like why she matters in the context of why Bo-Katan, like, it's important to know that, this is important to Bo-Katan, is really explained, or I mean, maybe explained is a bit generous of a word, but I should say mentioned. And all you really need to do is mention it by saying she is royal family. She has that scene in the second episode where she talks about her father and being raised in the Mandalorian ways. We know the show explains to you multiple times or tells you multiple times that Bo-Katan is of royal family and she's the heiress to Mandalore. And that's really all you need to know. You don't need to know the Satine sister connection. Like that is interesting context. And yes, I do agree it would provoke interesting conversations with other characters in the show, but it is not necessary for the story. All you really need to know is that Bo-Katan has this pressure on her shoulders from being the heiress. That pressure is even more interesting if you are a Star Wars fan and you've watched Rebels and Clone Wars.
Wouldn't it, though? You're talking about the infighting and how hard and how you were talking about a more nuanced approach to or maybe even just an expanded look at the Mandalorian war-torn history,
Yeah.
And I think even just mentioning one line of being like, forget about the clans fighting, like the opposite, you guys are in the Children of the Watch, where, this side of Mandalore. Forget about that. Two sisters who couldn't even see eye to eye. Like, I think that would have been interesting. Like, we know that.
If there was a scene, sorry to cut you off, but I just want to add, like, if there was a scene that would have been good to bring that up, it would have been that scene from the previous episode where Din and Bo-Katan were talking. Yep. And she is reflecting a bit, and she's no doubt alluding to her time in Death Watch.
No, for sure.
So that would have been a good time to bring it up. I would agree with that part.
Yeah. Also, real quick, I want to say I don't think it's necessary at all, but I think it's interesting. Nothing is necessary. Jack Black didn't need to be in this, but he was. It's like I just think I just disagree with you because I think it would be very interesting for someone that didn't know that to learn that in the show. Be like, yeah, as Mike says, not even sisters could figure it out. Like, not even they could be on the same side. So
I mean,
I think it would have
added some much needed substance.
Thank you for having my back. Yeah. Thank you for having my back. I gotta. Yeah, thank you. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll just be the Moff Gideon being consumed by the flames tonight. Just
So, he's right next to you.
Sitting down there with him. So we do have.
He's right next to you.
I'll squash this little green slime or whatever he says.
Yeah, whatever he says there. He didn't even care about him at the end, did he?
Not really. His focus was really killing the Mandalorian. So.
Why did Moff Gideon? And I get it, this isn't supposed to be, this dramatic. Mandalorian is not that dramatic of a series. But I will say, I think it would have, I don't know why he didn't remove his helmet. I don't think he's interested in Din's story, but it just takes me back to the season 1 finale where he's just standing out there and the music plays upbeat, and it goes to Din Djarin, and we learn about Mando's identity and stuff. And
back when the story was actually personal.
Yeah, and we learned about 1,000 Tears and everything, and it's I would have loved maybe not a continuation of that, but maybe something that paralleled a scene like that, because it just felt like, wow, we've had all these moments with these characters, and it just felt like a random Obi-Wan and Grievous fight to me. It didn't feel like something that could have that equaled their every time they met.
When Din and Gideon were fighting.
Right, when they were fighting. I was excited for this episode a bit because I was like, oh, I want to see with Gideon and Din talking, like in an interrogation room, because he even said like take him to the command center or something. And I thought we would get something between those two characters, like a conversation, and anything that was they conversated about was semi goofy. I don't know, like it was like, so I can have the Force, and I was just like, what is this?
Oh, that was.
Is this your Thanos
me and
moment?
Michael watching together, and I went like this on FaceTime because I just couldn't.
I think you're being a little harsh.
Real quick as well, Mike. I just want to point out that scene that you mentioned is actually such a good example of balancing personal stakes and like the overarching story of Mandalore. Because Gideon comes out and he says he talks about Din Djarin, and then it sets up that the personal stakes for Din, but then he also talks about the overall stakes for the Mandalorian people, and it goes into the Night of 1,000 Tears. So that's just a good example. Sorry.
How many of you? Parks. Wait, Parks. I'll let you finish. But how many of you guys here, if we started a Patreon, $1 or maybe even 50 cents, how many of you guys would want Parks? How many Parks? You could be in on this too. Parks looks so disgusted right now. How many of you guys would care if we did maybe not even a Patreon, but what if me and Ari sat down and reviewed the Mando season 1 and did like a commentary for them, or just reviewed them, and then we got Parks to join us for an episode or two, and then the finale. Parks, come on, you can't say it now.
There comes a point in which I am being exploited. No, I'm joshing.
But what's
you guys, what's on your itinerary for the podcast this summer, huh? No Star Wars shows coming out. What are you going to talk about?
A lot.
We're going to rest a little. We're going to put
okay. We're going to rest, and then there's going to be a big explosion of some very cool stuff.
Well, I would just say my professional advice would be grow the channel before you create a Patreon, but that's just me.
Thank you. You are a professional. You are a professional. I don't. You should also, if you guys want more Parks, go join his Patreon for real. It'll be. You
don't have to do that. You don't have to do that.
You join it right now. I'm just kidding.
Let's bring the show back on the road.
You were before we bring it back. Subscribe to Parks. Anyways, ours cutting out. Anyways, Parks. You were telling me that something was harsh.
Yeah. Oh, about the Force line? Yeah. I mean, so I'll acknowledge, like, this is subjective. This is one of the more subjective areas of the episode. Well, it's all subjective. Who's to say like a take is objective or this is objectively bad, good, whatever. Like I don't subscribe to that at all. I guess the proper word would be taste. This is more of a taste thing.
Right.
I loved Gideon in this episode. He hammed up every single second he was on screen, and it was deliciously entertaining. Like, it's not related to his performance, but it added to it that he's wearing this Imperial Mandalorian suit, and every time he moves with it, it makes like a robotic sound. I loved how heavily they leaned into that. Like, it's the same stuff with like the pirate stuff midway through the season. Like, I think there are points where this show knows exactly what it wants to be and goes for it. Like the two areas I would say it very much exceeds at that regularly is being like this big pulpy action thing. So Gideon very much leaning into like this mustache twirling, I want to, make force sensitive army of force sensitive clones based on me, which in itself reveals just how egotistical this man is that we know already.
Right.
And I just love that. I don't know. To me, it's like that makes it like a memorable like Star Wars villain that he is so out there about what he wants, and far and away we've gotten villains like this in like
For
the
sure.
Clone Wars and Rebels.
I like a campy villain. I mean,
yeah. And I'll never say like
villain.
I won't say Gideon. I love John Esposito and I've enjoyed Gideon as a villain. I'll never say he was like he never like what's the word I'm looking for? In seasons 1 and 2, like he wasn't only a campy villain, but there was camp to his performance. And I like that here. That was like camp taken to the maximum, there was, and I don't know how big of a deal it is, and maybe this is the more cynical part of my brain, but there was a part of me that was like, John Favreau has worked a lot with Marvel. He's very familiar with those movies, being in them so many times. There's a part of this that bugs me where, we have the sort of third act final battle where the hero is fighting like the evil version of themselves.
For sure.
Din's a Mandalorian and now he's fighting someone literally in like an Imperial Mandalorian suit. That part of it bugged me a little bit, but it's also like it couldn't have been any other way with Gideon, because from what we know about this guy in previous seasons, like without really saying it, the guy wishes he was a Mandalorian. Like he wishes he had this warrior culture and title and esteem of these people, but he doesn't have it, and that's really his whole deal. Is he's looking for power in places where it's not his. He's trying to steal the Force. He's trying to steal this cloning technology. He's trying to steal this Mandalorian thing. So it's all part of that. But yeah, like and I will side with one thing you guys said earlier while we're on this topic of Gideon, which is the sort of the final explanation for his whole reason for kidnapping Grogu, and wanting to get his blood or whatever, and his whole plan there with the Force clones. It definitely felt very like, and here's your answer. Like it was dropped in one scene and then moved on from, as you said earlier. In terms of the pacing and establishing pacing in the writing, or maybe trying to facilitate that more in the editing, that is one element where I'm like, okay, maybe you could have built up to that a bit more. You could have had an interaction where Mando's like, Gideon, come on, man, why do you hassle me so much? There's a hype moment earlier in the episode where him and Grogu are like, we're never going to be safe unless we take this guy down. And he's jealous of Mandalorians. Exactly. There's a potentially hype moment, like, or there's something interesting perhaps where these characters are fighting and Mando could have been like, why Gideon? What's this all about? And then that's when we sort of roll out basically the same information. We've just built up to it more, and we've made it something where Mando had to sort of pry the information out of him a bit more. But that's my spiel on Gideon.
Yeah, I wish just in overall sense when it comes to Gideon, I wish we got to explore that prison arc role, because I think the season 2 finale concluded the season nicely, but it set a lot of things up for the future where I'm like, it's written in the stars, my guy. Like it's just written there where we can just go and explore these possible stories, whether there was a big story or not there with Gideon. It's like there was still something to be told there, and it was like, nope, he escaped. And it was like, I mean, sure, we all expected that he was going to come back at one point, but the way it was handled, and instead we were doing nonsensical stuff with Ragnar or whatever his name is, and whatever, it was just like, I would have rather seen Moff Gideon, and and stuff. And yeah, I like some downtime still with Bocatan and Din, doing the whole droid story. Like if that was earlier in the season and retooled a little bit, that would have been fine. No complaints from me. But the fact that it was so far out in the season and it's like we're out of Jeez, Ari, you don't have to get mad and hit
I
your
just
desk.
knocked my desk with my chair.
But that's the unhinged moment of the day for you, Shane. But of Ari.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know, like if there was just something else with Moff Gideon there that we could have explored, maybe in the because it was so cool when he was about to shoot himself, and this is the campiness that in some of the performance that I think you're talking about, or at least to me, because it's like the way he did it was so dramatic, like. And then I think
Cara. Oh yeah, he didn't hesitate. He knew Luke was coming, and he was like,
right.
He had a moment to do it. Yeah,
it was so cartoony that I remember I still laugh when that happens, and I think that's the purpose because it was just like he would have pulled. I don't know what the intention was, but like I don't know if he was just doing it for theatrics or if he was gonna wait, because I don't think Moff Gideon. Let's talk about it now. People in the chat, is Moff Gideon dead? What do you guys think, Ari?
Oh
dead
God, I hope so.
Okay. You don't think?
Okay. Honestly, though, look,
just
to go on a very short tangent, Moff Gideon to me, I really loved him in season 1 or 2, but by season 3, he just felt so one-dimensional. I feel like he spits out the same 3 lines every time we see him, and
the
way he was handled off screen. I mean,
You're not breaking my heart. I'm disagreeing silently.
The way he was handled off screen is just ridiculous. Like, but I mean, that just goes for everything. I feel like that the season 2 finale set up. That finale, everything that we had to look forward to post that has just been completely unraveled, I feel like. And that was one of the biggest things for me. But I just, please, no more Gideon. The conclusion of the whole Force cloning thing was dealt with very abruptly and wasn't very satisfying.
Abruptly is a good word. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Didn't vibe with it. Loved him in season 1 and 2, but let's move on.
I think for me, I think Gideon, I have a fear that for me, I feel like right now they're taking inspiration from Heir to the Empire, which is great. It's like, okay, cool. And I feel like they might tap into the Dark Empire comic series where Palpatine comes back and, he in a younger form. Have you guys ever read Parks? Have you ever read Dark Empire?
Not Dark Empire. I've read Heir to the Empire, but not.
I was gifted it when I was like 14 years old, the comic series, and I read it, and it was very dark stuff, but no pun intended. But Palpatine comes back and everything. Mm-hmm. So like I'm almost questioning if because there's a moment where Luke has this similar moment where he walks. It's been almost a decade, literally almost a decade since I read the thing, but there's a moment where Luke walks in and there's all these tanks of young Palpatine alongside the windows. And
oh yeah,
that's what it reminded me of when Mando walked up in there and there's all these like cloning tanks, and it was Moff Gideon. I almost think that maybe one of them got to make it even during the explosion or something.
I mean, it's like it has the potential to be open-ended,
For sure. And
but also thematically, for what's there, like he has a good final death. Like and I can't take credit for this. You guys mentioned Star Wars Explained earlier. I'm also a fan of him. He pointed out a great thing about the moment where he dies, which is, we see this moment where Grogu, we have 3 different Mandalorians, essentially. We have Grogu, Din Djarin, and we have Bocatan, 3 different kinds of Mandalorians all together huddled under this flames. And that is a beautiful visual, by the way. My jaw almost dropped seeing this vertical shot of like the fire flying past them while Grogu's holding the fire back.
Right.
But and he's consumed by the flames, and there's something very symbolic about that despite having the Beskar armor, despite stealing all these different elements from all these different cultures and people, like in the end, like he can't really save himself. The only thing that can is community and other people, and that's what the Mandalorians represent, ultimately in the story of the season. So there is something definitive about that. I wouldn't put it past Favreau or whomever to bring Gideon back in some way, but I think this is the last we've probably seen of him as like a main villain. And I only say that because well, aside from the explanation I just offered, where the show ends or where the season ends feels like, we are putting Din in a good spot for the battle against Thrawn that is, no doubt going to follow after this show. And so the whole Gideon thing, book has been closed. Thrawn's sort of next on the menu, or whomever, another Imperial warlord, and then we get to Thrawn, however long it takes them to tell the story, so.
Yeah. Also, I just had the most random thought, but this is kind of tied into what we're talking about. Also, not really, though. But, like, if you look back to episode 6, the end of the episode where Axe Woves' group of Mandos will refuse to join Bocatan because, like, she doesn't rightfully have the Darksaber, and then Din comes up with some elaborate explanation of why she actually is the rightful possessor of the Darksaber. It's like that was what was ridiculous about Mandalorians, is that, there's certain rules about who can own the Darksaber, and you need to wear your helmet and all this sort of stuff. And if you guys want to do that, it's fine. But it's like, it was like as if you don't do that, you're not Mandalorian type deal. There was never even an acknowledgement at the end of the season to be like, actually, yeah, like, Bo-Katan, we don't need the Darksaber to rule. Like, it just gets broken and no one hears about it.
I completely disagree. You don't get that moment from other Mandalorians. And in general, like, that's the thing with the show, is like, there is a scene to acknowledge something has happened, but the greater implications of it, you don't get to explore that too much. The moment where Gideon destroys the Darksaber, and I guess now we're talking about the Darksaber. Initially I'm like, okay, so let's state the obvious first. Who knew the Darksaber could be destroyed so easily?
It's made out of Beskar, isn't it?
I don't know. It probably is. I don't know.
Let me get my resource book 1 second.
Yeah, but like, and you guys have had your argument about Tales of the Jedi on here before. Like, sometimes the canon, the lore doesn't matter so much as like the meaning behind a story moment. So I initially was kind of upset that it wasn't a character like Bo-Katan or Din or a Mandalorian making that choice and going, you know what? We don't need the Darksaber. We can destroy. And you've echoed this as well, Ari, throughout the season. You said, eventually this thing's going to get destroyed, but you presume that has to be done in a moment where the Mandalorians recognize themselves that they are beyond this weapon.
Exactly.
That, in my mind, happens here, but it just happens a bit differently. Gideon destroys the weapon, which should crush Bo-Katan, and there's a moment where she is sort of, realizing that it's destroyed. But the more important thing after that moment is that it doesn't deter her from fighting him, and that she continues the fight. And it's her in that moment going, I don't care about it anymore. I don't need it. Like, that's not what matters. And that's further emphasized by the end of this fight when, her and Mando and Grogu are fighting him. And they save each other together. That moment does happen here. It doesn't happen in the conventional way of a character making that choice. To further give credit to that moment, it's Gideon doing something with the weapon that he has always done, and that's try to assert control over the Mandalorians. That's the whole reason he possesses it in the first 2 seasons, because he knows it drives someone like Bo-Katan nuts, that he is not a Mandalorian and he possesses the weapon. Now he's going to do something even worse, and that's destroy it right in front of her and go, hey, that thing you used to unite your people, I've just destroyed it. What are you going to do about it now? And the powerful thing about that moment is that Bo-Katan continues fighting anyway, despite it being destroyed right in front of her. So, and as someone who's the de facto leader of Mandalore or whatever, like, that's kind of the most important acknowledgement you need. You can have and it would be interesting to explore, like, what these other Mandalorians, Axe Woves, whomever, Cosca Reeves, like, we don't need the Darksaber after all. Like, some more nuance to that conversation. But in conventional, like, some symbolic sort of Star Wars storytelling, I feel like that was the purpose of that exchange with the Darksaber.
Yeah.
Hold on, Ari, I got you.
In summary, it was just done in a far less powerful way than it could have.
Well, that's your opinion. I think, put it this way. Earlier today, Ari, I agreed with you completely in what you just said. But I've thought about it. I've heard some other people's takes on it, and I feel like that's where I rest now. And I've found something meaningful in that now. Because put it this way, the story's done. It's over. It could have been done differently in many different ways. But if I'm looking at it how it was done, and I can genuinely find meaning in something that happened, I'm gonna go, oh, do I like that? Do I not like that? And this is something where I'm like, yeah, I think that's actually really cool. I like that. This is something where Gideon has always used this weapon to mock the Mandalorians, to assert control over them. And here's a moment where it no longer works, and that is also proof that they've defeated Gideon.
Yeah. It's valid. If you can find meaning in it, then no, it honestly is fair enough. I'm just playing around, but yeah, that moment still just lacks.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was initially disappointed with Moff Gideon and Din's fight in the season 2 finale, because it seemed like they were, it was obviously going to be Din's the focus, and he at the end of the Believer comes up on the hologram table and it's like, Moff Gideon, and repeats his whole line of dialogue that Moff Gideon told him in the season 1 finale. So it was just like this gonna be this fight or whatever, and he even had the best scar sword or the stick, the whatever you want to call it, the baton, whatever, the spear, and it was just going to be this cool fight. And initially I was just like, man, I was expecting it to be a little bit longer, a little bit more, just a little bit cooler, and it just felt like so fast paced. And then the big moment of the episode was Luke, and it outshined what should have been like the big moment in the episode. But now I feel obviously completely different about it, because every time that fight happens, I'm like, oh yeah, that conversation right before the fight even happens. I mean, and Moff Gideon does have that, like I said earlier, that cartoony villain side of him, where he's just standing there in that room with Din after he just explained, like, you can take the child, but leave my ship and go in peace. And then he's just like standing there and like side-eyeing him and be like, bam, it's just like that. Like, you're an idiot. Like, who does that? Like, it's just funny. So I don't want to have a knee-jerk reaction where I'm like, with the Darksaber being like a mistake or whatever, because maybe, I'll try to rewatch the season, although as hard as it may be, I'll rewatch it and see how this moment lands, in that rewatch, and maybe it'll be different, maybe I'll like it. But initially I was just like, so that's it? Like,
yeah, the Darksaber there's so much you can do story-wise about the Darksaber that I, personally really wanted to see explored. And I mean, not even just acknowledging, like, Din possesses it for a lot of the season and he has a hard time wielding it, and that's a potential story hook for him learning how to use it, just like Sabine did in Rebels. Then to Bo-Katan to get it, which happened in Rebels. Of course, it happens a bit differently here, and it's sort of a second chance for her. Yeah, the journey that Weapon's been on in this show is definitely not what I expected, and it would have been a little more interesting to discuss the implications of wielding it and breaking it and stuff like that. But I feel like what Favreau wants to say with it is baked into some of those moments in the episode, even if it's not saying much,
Yeah, for sure. And all right, well, I'm gonna do a quick rapid run through the chat just because we've got so much that we haven't talked about.
Sorry, everybody.
Thank you to everyone for putting in the comments, everything like that. We will. I'm gonna read a bunch of them out now. We're gonna answer any questions super quickly. So let's start with Orion, who puts his 2 cents in. Says, I feel like this is overall too safe. Started with Book of Boba Fett reverting things to the status quo with Din and Grogu. Definitely agree. Bo-Katan receives the Darksaber despite didn't receiving it. Yeah, exactly. Completely agree.
What was the whole moment with Din? I thought we would just get this moment like Sabine Wren had in Rebels, where he's struggling with the weapon, and I'm like, okay, I definitely don't want a rehash of events what we've seen already.
You want to see him learn in his own way, though.
Exactly. I'm like, I know that they'll probably do a different spin on it, where it will be conveyed to him differently. because even Paz was struggling with it, but the whole thing was that Mando was struggling with it, and the armor was like, you got to similar to what Kanan told Sabine. So that was a very, very cool scene, and I'm like, okay, like that's some setup for the future, and it just seems like they just did a 180, and we're like, it just felt like the light shifted to Bo-Katan, and with that, she got all the. It's like, she became Hulkbuster, and she started getting all the gadgets to fight Hulk, and that's what happened. It's like she got all the pieces of the story. She even got that like the Beskar, the new piece of armor, and the Darksaber and everything. She just got everything, and I kind of like how the finale did kind of just put them all equal amount of spotlight, but it's like if you're already focusing on Bo-Katan, might as well just make her the star and whatnot in the finale, or at least in that Gideon fight. But I don't know.
Definitely. And JR says, I think the general plot of the season was great. It made sense. The storyline side linked in, and rushing into Gideon stories at the very end just felt like it wasn't earned. Yeah, that we've been harping on all season long about how moments have gone by feeling just a bit unearned.
Like I saw someone say today they liked that the part of Gideon not showing up to the end that they like is that he has sort of a potential presence when they allude to him being out in the galaxy and you don't know what he's up to. And I don't know how I completely feel about that, but it is an interesting thought. And if nothing else, like one of the reasons for that third episode with Dr. Pershing and Elia Kane is to sort of tease that Gideon is doing stuff. His agents are working up front, Elia Kane is, but she still reports to Gideon. And so we're alluding to that. It just would have been nice to see Gideon a bit earlier than we did versus at the very end going, now that I'm here, here's what I'm going to do. Oh, that didn't work, So, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Joel back in the chat says, personally feel like when it comes to the armor, for some folks projecting a lot, especially on how they feel about religion. I mean, it's a touchy subject for sure, but I mean, I agree. It's contentious, and it's true. It does depend on the way you see a character like the armor, who is the leader of, whether you want to call it a cult or a religion or whatever. Your opinions are going to be contentious. So definitely a valid point.
Wait, go back to them. Go ahead, Parks.
I just want to say, like, I know you want to speak through these comments, so I won't try to take too long on this one, but I just want to say, because this is something that I've talked to a few of my followers about today. This is something that I did a lot early in the season, and it's part of the negative experience I had for so many weeks with this season was projecting a lot on sort of, I mean, the armor for one, but just projecting on where the story was going. And as someone who has sort of an experience, with religion and growing up and my own relationship to that, like, I was sort of expecting it to go in like a certain direction of questioning her, because that has been sort of set up and planted in place by episodes like The Believer in season 2, where we have this very nuanced point, probably the most nuanced Mandalorian's ever been, about the helmet rule and what the watch stands for and stuff like that. But I think it's important to remember the angle of the armor and the watch being a cult comes directly from Bo-Katan in season 2 at a point when she just doesn't see the point in working with them. But she is at a point now where she does. And like, you could argue it's like, well, yeah, but Jon Favreau's trying to write that the extremist cult is like all cool and shit. But sorry about the swear. If we're gonna put this on podcast platforms, but
sorry, Apple and Spotify.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, listeners there, and I apologize to younger viewers. What was I saying? Projecting on the armor and God, sorry. That whole entire
you're saying John something about
about the extremist cult, but also arguing that hinges on or predicates on that, again, that view that Bo-Katan, not exactly in the best headspace, says that they are a cult. So the show is telling us that they're not necessarily that now, and like there's some value to that. And I mean, compared to Death Watch, which was a very much a literal cult in the Clone Wars, who murdered civilians and was totally undiplomatic and conspired with criminals to retake Mandalore. Like these group of people honestly haven't done anything too bad. They just subscribe to a certain view of what a Mandalorian is, and the show never says that what they believe in is necessarily wrong. It's just different, and that's valid because of their standpoint. And this is something real world religions have to contend with. Like there's so many different views on Christianity, so many different views on Judaism. And I think the show was trying to reflect a bit of that with the season. It was trying to reflect, like, we talked a bit in the past about finding a balance, but the truth is the closest thing to a balance is literally just a compromise between these different groups of going, believe what you want to believe in, let us believe what we want to believe in, we can coexist. It'd be interesting to see the show in the future explore why that doesn't always work out and why there are holy wars in human history over that type of thing, and why there's like this fierce sort of unspoken competitiveness between sort of different churches and different beliefs, and and where the cult angle starts to come in on that front. But otherwise, for what the show is trying to say, like, yeah, I think you're right, Joel. Like, I think it is projecting, and I think I was doing that, and I think I kind of, now that I'm wrapped my mind around what the story is actually saying about them, I think I kind of prefer that to what I was projecting on them earlier in the season.
However, what I don't understand is that the armor, I don't think it's right to put that character into saying, like, into a position where it's like, yeah, like, well, the armor's reasoning is fair, because I personally think it's not, because they may have grown as a character. However, we were still at a point where Din took his helmet off, and so he was banished from the cult.
Yes, we never got the point. We never got the development.
Yeah,
that led
I know
her to
that that she has grown since then, but I guess there's more issue with the show than the character. That growth, there's no explanation for it. I don't think. She just sort of says, "Bocatan, you can take your helmet off," and now I'm just
we never had that moment that it was at most an implied thing by Bocatan being a part of the watch, contributing to the watch, and the armor witnessing that. That's about the most that contributes to that.
Her coming to the point of view that we can coexist. I don't know what happened for her to suddenly come to that realization. So I'm not. Yeah. That's why I'm furious with how it ended in terms of the armor is put in the position of power to say, now you're family. It's like, who are you to say that? You banished him about a year or however long ago, and so. And what would happen if Din took his helmet off now? Would she banish him again? Like, we don't know. Well, he can just go take a swim. So it's like,
I'd like to add one thing to that, because I think the show does answer that. When Ragnar at the end is getting, he's saying the speech again, they leave out the part about leaving your helmet on at the very end. He says the whole
I don't know if that's an answer, to be honest. Because we don't know.
It's a choice, though. It's a choice. Like, Favreau deliberately, like, that part is deliberately left out.
You're saying now we know if some Mandalorian takes the helmet off, the armor won't be mad.
I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, like, there is some evidence that something has changed. Like, there's a more inclusive view in the
show. I agree with that.
Yeah,
definitely. Anyway, great discussion point. Good to bring that up.
Thank you, Joel.
Another one from Joel. For me, I enjoyed it more or less. I felt Mandalorian has always been two grown men with action figures since day one. I think that's a response to what I said earlier, and that's fair enough. I personally felt like the show had a lot of substance when it first started, and I think it's lacked that. But if you've always thought that, totally fair. Gambit Productions, this is a bit of a random one, guys. I'm 99% sure that Vel is going to die in Andor season 2.
Gambit just turned the conversation to Andor and saying what they liked about Andor.
I don't think he's still
here for it.
No.
Yeah, and Matt says this season felt like a bunch of B plots, but not an A plot. Yeah, I tend to agree with that.
And that unfortunately was underlined by the ending of Din basically being like, okay, now that I got my Mandalorian business taken care of, back to independent contracting.
Right.
Hook me up, Tisa whatever that character's name is.
Right.
For sure.
We hit the reset button.
Yeah. Jonas Kamara says it felt very fun, which I wasn't expecting. I really didn't expect Mandalore, which I didn't expect Mandalore to be this season. I really thought it would be about Din realizing he is Mandalorian and can lead the others. Yeah,
that's kind of what I was expecting too.
The show did subvert expectations, which sometimes is good. Sometimes it
Jonas.
It could go direction you don't expect. Yeah, what's up, Jonas? But I guess quickly to talk about this one, Mike. do you feel like I had a question for you, but now it's completely jumped out of my head. But I'll ask you on the next one when I remember. And while I like that he ended up relaxing for once with his son, it still felt like that should have come much later on. Yeah, it was certainly an interesting point to leave it off. JJ is excited to finally catch us live. Excited to have
Thank you, JJ.
I think
JJ's been
shout out to JJ
as well. Question from Isaac, who said, "Do you think there's still a possibility that the clone on Navarro was Snoke, or was that just a Gideon clone?" All right, Mike, I'll throw this one to you. What do you think?
I definitely think that was a tease towards Snoke. I don't think that was specifically Moff Gideon. I think what maybe was, I think this is just a theory. I'm just speculating, but I think that maybe some of the people on the council, everyone, is given little tasks or whatever, and I'm sure that with him, it wasn't. I'm sure they're also just have their own. They want to seize as much property and land as possible and get funding for their own stuff. Have their own kind of agenda. But look, I think that he might have started off with, oh yeah, let's, we're gonna do cloning experiments, specifically maybe stuff that will aid our Palpatine research or whatever they're setting up there. And, we get some teasers in Bad Batch. That's what they want to do. So it's like,
yeah,
I think that he started down that line. So that was probably like an early subject. And then then I'm sure Gideon got inspired to be like, why don't I create my own army? And I don't have to have this, Supreme Council or whatever. Because, as we meet many bad guys, they usually turn on their own because they want to be the sole victor. And I think that Gideon definitely would have been the person to be like, yeah, I don't have to respond or talk to these guys, because I'm sure he finds Thrawn to be a threat. So that would have been interesting.
Yeah. That's a very standard Imperial sort of way of thinking.
So I think I'm almost like I'm kicking my desk like Ari was doing earlier, that Gideon is dead, because I would have totally loved to see the dynamic of Thrawn and Gideon.
Yeah,
and
that's a great point.
And see the contrast in that. But I definitely think I definitely think Snoke was maybe like a test subject or whatever. I don't know what happened. Then they blow it up. So even if that was,
I think someone pointed out, I saw this on Twitter like a few days ago, that at this point, canonically speaking, like per the books and comics and stuff, Snoke currently is alive, and so is Rey's dad, I think, who is like a Palpatine clone offshoot.
I'm assuming that comes from Shadow of the Sith.
Probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I would fish that. And while we're on Gideon as well, Chelsea, what's up, Chelsea? Says Moff Gideon is a hater because he's jealous of Mandalorian's period. Yeah, he does.
Oh yeah, I played that earlier.
Pretty jealous. JJ says Gideon was fun and hammy. I agree. But it was all so thin because a quarter of his story happened off the screen this season. I completely agree with that comment. Shane says they miss Moff Gideon for season 1 and 2. Yep. Ringmaster, speaking of Ragnar,
hey, Ringmaster.
I don't think Din has even noticed Paz died. That's a great point. I don't think he even did. And I mentioned in our reaction last time, like, yeah, Paz died at the end of last episode.
Yeah.
And no one even mentioned it.
One of those things, again, if the episodes were longer, like maybe it wouldn't have had much emotional impact, but there could have been a scene where, I thought when after the battle was over and we cut to sort of that scene with the waters or whatever, I thought it was, and Ragnar was there, I thought we were going to have a funeral scene for Paz, but it was...
Man, if Wayne gets the treatment he got in Obi-Wan, Paz deserves at least a mention.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh yeah, that's right, that guy.
I mean, if they like Paz, the armor are on, like, fine, you didn't deliver on Moff Gideon specifically with including him more or whatever, fine. But the promotional art for the Mando mailer that I got from Hasbro, literally the Mando promos, the posters has the armor, Bo, and Din as the 4 main Mandalorians of this season, and he doesn't even get a mention.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I want to add to that is like I guess it's not a fair comparison because this is a different kind of show. It's live action and it's 8 episodes, so the story's a little more like laser focused. But there were a lot of deaths, like in Clone Wars, where like a really important character would die, like 5s, and it wouldn't get brought up again, like ever.
Well, it was an anthology series.
Yeah, and I'd say that's the only reason it's not a valid comparison, perhaps here, because like
we
those
got
moments
so much
stick with us, the
focus.
viewers, but Paz has been like a main character this whole season, or a
Right,
supporting character, you know. So.
Exactly. There was so much emphasis on Paz, where we had a whole episode where we're saving his son, and same with the armor. We just got so much focus that you think like if the armor died and there's just nothing much more to it than oh yeah, she died this episode. Like damn.
I'm trying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm just trying to think of a Star Wars equivalent, and I'm thinking like AP5 or something. It's like if AP5 in Rebels died, and we just never heard about it. You know.
I guess
would that throw either of you off?
The way droids have been treated recently in Star Wars, it wouldn't be surprising.
Oh man, that's a whole.
Yeah, I guess you would have to find a character death in Rebels that would be. I mean, the thing that just jumped to my mind is an example of when the show did do this well. Previously was when Queel died in season 1.
Oh yeah.
There's that very sweet moment. It's one moment, but it's so beautiful when Din is walking away from his grave at the end of. So like, yeah, he died. There wasn't really a whole lot of conversation with the characters about it, and then we get to see Din walking away from his grave at the end, which is a very nice moment of like, this is what you meant to me. You deserve the honor and respect that I bear you.
Right.
So yeah, it would have been anything like that. I guess with Paz would have just been good enough.
For sure.
But...
Also, Mike just is making me laugh because when you said when Quill died, he just starts going like this.
I'm not sure I understood that.
If anyone remembers, I think as that we get that shot of his body, it's like
it's like it's a little banjo playing.
You're funny, bro.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like a banjo playing.
I feel like I remember that musical
It sounds like
cue.
Like a string instrument.
Yeah,
maybe I don't.
Like a guitar.
I'm not a Mandalorian fan. I guess I got
anyway.
Thank you, Ari, for understanding that. Ari knew.
Yeah, I know. That's why I love because like
you're like
I should not understand that, but the fact that I do is just
that moment.
hilarious. JJ, I think the problem is that the show does nothing to confront how the Mandalorians move forward without the dark side. Yeah, we talked about that for sure, but absolutely. Joel coming in here with the hot take says Mandalorian is the armor.
Oh yeah, he repeated it.
I feel like a lot of people opinion on her based on people's real word. Oh, we've talked about this. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Joel.
Sure. Man. Oh, Austin's got a burning question. What flavor lollipop is that, Mike?
Cherry. Thank you.
I want to address this question from Ringmaster as well. How do you guys think the season stacks up next to Book of Boba and Obi-Wan? Because me and Mike posted it on his story, and I reshared it saying I agreed. We had it Mando season 1, Andor season 1, Mando season 2, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, Mando season 3. Parks. Without explaining, how do those 6 go for you?
The 6 seasons of Star Wars television,
live action. Yeah.
Andor's number 1. Then I'd put Mando season 2. I'd put down the fist. This
is not a violent podcast.
Yeah, come on. Put that down. I'm not staying on here if you're gonna threaten me like that. I'd probably then put Mando season 1. Now the 3 here are battling out in the mud pit at the bottom. I'd probably put this might be controversial, but my feelings on all these seasons are pretty close together, so they could flip-flop a bunch. I'd probably put Book of Boba Fett, then Mando season 3, then Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, Obi-Wan, man.
Yeah,
that might be a little harsh.
Parks was salty that he didn't get to attend the premiere with us.
Yeah, I was so salty. Forever has ruined my experience.
I mean, I mentioned this with me and Michael. We're talking to my brother last night about like I was saying how Rebels is my favorite thing, but I totally acknowledge the insurmountable amount of bias I have toward the series, and I think that's similar for me, and I think Mike as well with Obi-Wan, where that series, like going to that premiere and experiencing, at least for me, I don't know, Mike's nodding his head right now, at least for me, made the series so much more special, and I'm like in love with the first episode because it just sends me back, and I mean, this isn't the Obi-Wan podcast, but I think Obi-Wan is a little bit overhated.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I think the middle of that show to me does absolutely nothing at all for me.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. Obi-Wan Kenobi was still a failure in many aspects because we talk about this. No,
it's a harsh label, yeah.
It is harsh, but it's like, how do you get Hayden Christensen to come back after all he'd been through? How do you get him to come back? You finally get him to come back as Obi-Wan. And that's the story that we got. It just felt like they were trying to tell a different story when it should have been the way it was pitched. A reunion between Vader or Obi-Wan meeting Vader. And they just mixed in the Reva stuff. I bought the Black Series for Reva. I love Reva. Moses Ingram, the acting is great. But there's just so many elements in there that were just not really working for me when the focus should have been Obi-Wan, Vader. There we go. That's just me. But but at the end, the finale stuck it out and gave us a lot of rewarding experiences, and I felt an emotional connection to it. And overall, I was like, okay, this overall, it was a really. I'm telling you, the finale just saved the series for me because I think the first episode is really, really solid. The second episode as well. Where I lose it is the third one is kind of a slow churn, and it's like, all right, and the I don't know, and also just visually hot garbage. It's just visually, it's just
yeah.
I'll gag on this lollipop.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the Obi-Wan, the Obi-Wan rap. The three of us actually did an Obi-Wan podcast together. Go check that out. That was also live.
And Obi-Wan
was called
The
Return. Like, yeah, that he was there. Why was it called The Return? Like, what? And same with the spies. I know. Once again, I guess talking about the religion thing, people have come out and said, "Oh, it's called the spies." It's a biblical reference, which, I mean, that's fine.
Yes,
I mean,
I was going to bring that up. I
never,
learned about that earlier.
Yeah. I've never read the Bible, so that went right over my head. I don't think that's a little bit silly, but if that's what they want to do, fine. And the return, I assumed that's the return to Mandalore, but we returned to the previous episode. The titles are a little...
the return of sort of the Mandalore under Mandalorian rule, yeah.
The titles aren't important, but I think both of them have been very vague and unconvincing, as K2SO would put it, so.
Fight or Flight is the best episode title that has ever come across in Star Wars television. Thank you.
100.
Fight or Flight only gets better every day.
Let's hear it from the Star Wars Exchange Mod team. Let's hear it for it. We got Shane,
Thank you.
Parks, Austin, of course, Chelsea's in here somewhere, and I think that's all the mods we got. But yeah, for sure.
Shout out you.
Austin says let him cook. I think this was when Parks was talking, so shout out Parks.
Thank you.
All right, what else we got? Oh man,
do not let Austin cook because he will drop the pan of macaroni and cheese all over the carpet. No, just kidding. Shout out Austin's cooking.
Yeah, shout out Austin.
Shout out Matt. And shout out Matt. Shout out everybody in here.
Shout out Matt, yeah.
Everybody
Chelsea says, whoa, I didn't pick up on the fact that she didn't mention the helmet when saying it again. Oh my god. Oh yeah, at the end, for sure. Man, sorry. I'm trying to find the right comments to click on. Especially since they made Paz the main character again this season, for sure. I feel the need to point out that we see Rex Morning Fives at the beginning of season 7. Yeah, I mean, that's a little different, but...
Yeah, I replied to that and say it wasn't the best example. There are other character deaths in that show, particularly clones that
leave Ryan alone.
And that's very
valid.
We love Ryan, but...
Parks, let me ask you, because it was just brought up again about what makes the spies a biblical reference. Do you know?
Yes. In fact, I had the Wikipedia page pulled up earlier because I was reading about it, because I learned about it earlier. So now let me read through the whole thing. No, just kidding. So basically, it refers to something in the Book of Numbers, the 12 spies. They're a group of Israel chieftains who were sent by Moses to scout out the land of Canaan, which is the promised land, for 40 days to see if it was good for the people to go there, basically. So you can very directly equate that here with the Mandalorian people are trying to see throughout that whole episode, they talk about a scouting party to see if Mandalorian's good, if they can live there again. It very directly pulls from that part of the Bible.
That's nice. Okay.
Yeah.
I do not, because I was listening to a podcast and someone made an analogy to, I think it was another episode title or something, and they made it a biblical reference to it, and I was just like, and the host, even though I know one of them is Catholic, he was just like, yeah, that's kind of silly. And I was like, I really hope we don't go down that route, because it just really secludes a lot of people, in my opinion. But that's coming from someone that has a cross. I know you guys can't see it, a crucifix right up my. I already seen it. I think Parks has seen it, but I mean, it's cool and everything, but it's just like, to me, it's a little.
It's also the title of the episode. It's one of the least important things of it.
Exactly.
It's an interesting thing, and to me, like, it is a very direct hint at maybe some of the basis for what this season is inspired by, which a person like me really likes that a lot. But yeah, like, it also led to like really rampant speculation on Twitter and Instagram for a week of who is the spy, which certainly, which, like, I shouldn't be surprised, but yeah, it led to a lot of people going into this episode being like, is it the armor? Is it one of those, people who wander on the surface, and people banking on like one of these people, and then it doesn't do that at all. And really the proof was in the pudding the whole there with that title. So it's just interesting to see that sort of.
And I don't like, I've never read the Bible, I'm not religious, but it's like I didn't feel like excluded or anything when I heard that, but I was just like, oh really? Like, that's a little dumb, to be honest. I felt like that, but I don't disrespect the Bible. I want to go through some. We've got our active.
I got it right over there,
viewers.
Ari. I will put my hand on it. Right on here.
All right, come over and we'll read it together. Yeah.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
Oh my god,
love a good Bible.
Same JJ. I went to Catholic school my entire life, and I missed that reference.
Shane says wild eye take, man. If you think that's wild, oh god, that sounded like a threat. I didn't mean for that to sound like a threat.
If you think that's wild, wait till you see what I do to your face.
So let's go. When we were talking about how we rank the seasons, a few of our listeners commented. So Austin goes Andor, Mando 1, Mando 2, Mando 3. Kenobi, Book of Boba. Yeah, I think the top 3. I'd be shocked if anyone didn't have the same 3 in their top 3,
unless they really love Obi-Wan or something.
Andor, Mando season 1, Mando season 2, Obi-Wan, Book of Boba, Mando season 3, Joel, Andor, Mando 2. Oh, there we go, Joel. Yeah, Kenobi in the top 3, Mando 1, Mando 3, Book of Boba Fett. Shane, Andor 1, Mando 2, Mando 1.
Appreciate it.
Boba, Kenobi, Mando season 3.
Similar ranking.
Yeah, Chelsea. Andor 1, Mando 1, Mando 2, Kenobi, Mando 3, Book of Boba.
Let's go, Chelsea. That's pretty. Chelsea, that's goated.
Similar.
That's a good. It's very similar to my list. Very nice.
Andor.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, very, very interesting to hear from all of you guys.
Thank you for doing
an interesting comment. Honestly, I like Kenobi more than I like any season of Kenobi, to be honest.
Awesome. Very interesting take. That's very hot. That's
might have been typed incorrectly, or maybe there's something more interesting there.
No, Joel, that's what Joel meant.
Andor season 1, Mando 1, Mando 2, Book of Boba, Obi-Wan, Mando season 3. Yeah, very interesting. We're close to caught up, not quite. No, I don't know what we're talking about there, but
I think we were talking about the mods at that point. We were shouting about.
What is Jasper doing here?
Yo, what's up, Jasper? You're welcome.
Jasper is the mysterious brother that I've been mentioning.
Wait, what is Jasper still here? I'm very curious.
I don't know.
You know what?
Jasper.
I told Jasper. I said yesterday on our phone call when he was leaving. I'm like, bye, Jasper. Have a good rest of your day. And he goes, bye, Mike. Stay salty. And I was like, what? He's mad. He's mad that I didn't enjoy the finale like he did.
Nice. Oh man,
he put
a lot of styles conversations go on in this house.
Put the Mando finale next to Twilight of the Apprentice, which is crazy to me. No, I'm just kidding. No, he did it.
No, that's misinformation. That's misinformation.
He says, "Shut up, Mike." Thank you, Jasper. Appreciate you. Love you too, buddy.
What were you gonna say, Parks?
No, I was just saying. I saw people earlier. I know you guys were saying this is probably your least favorite of the 3 finales. Or that's just been a general take going around, but I don't know. I was talking to some people earlier who they actually they said it was like their second favorite, and they liked, which one did they like the least? I think it was the season 2 one. And I can see that only because the Luke moment, as celebrated as that moment is, there is a strain of people who don't really love that Luke moment or feel like it's a weird ramification of the Vader moment in Rogue One. So it's just a food for perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I'm a little baffled by people thinking that is the way. This isn't the weakest finale.
This is the way.
Yeah. God, if I say that one more time, I swear to God. Yeah, I don't know. Parks, you explained it well. Joel Davis, the one thing that is annoying me about the reception of the finale is people getting salty about Ahsoka, even though Favreau isn't writing it. Filoni,
yeah, how do we feel about that?
And writing. Yeah, we actually talked about this last night, and I was saying to Mike, I'm so happy to be watching something that's not written by Jon Favreau. I know Dave Filoni contributes to Mandalorian, and he's written an odd episode here or there, but yeah, no, oh God, sorry, I just saw a comment. I'll address that in a second. Man, I honestly lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, no, Dave Filoni. It's going to be great to see him writing new series. So I agree with Joel. I wouldn't put Ahsoka in the same field as Mando season 3 yet. I think we got to go in with an open mind and let's really give Filoni a chance to cook in live action, because this is completely his project. Mando is very much his as well, but this is all him.
Yeah.
This is the story he wants to tell. I'm very curious to see where it goes. My excitement, I will admit, went a little bit down after this season of Mando. But all in all, so pumped to see Ezra, Zeb, Sabine, Hera, Chopper, etc. But yeah, we'll see.
I was listening to a podcast earlier that Ari and I did a long time ago. It was probably in February, so not that long, but long. And Ari was like, I just watched chapter whatever of Mandalorian with the Ahsoka episode, and he's like, not gonna lie, my excitement for the Ahsoka series has gone down. And obviously Ari's opinions can change because we just got a full length trailer. But for me, and I'm sure Dave Filoni can improve, but right now, what I think Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are too close to each other. If this was a Deborah Chow situation, I'd be like, oh, escape. We're escaping from Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. But right now, I feel like they're one of the same, and I feel like it in a similar fashion. Someone brought this up to me because the frustrating thing for me for Dave Filoni right now is his disregard and kind of disrespect for other people's work that isn't his. Where he'll just like retcon or just not give a F about, what story there is already out there. That's why you will never see Dave Filoni do a story in the High Republic, because he's like that stuff they're building from the ground up. And if they have Dave Filoni in there, he would knock that thing down like Jenga. Anyways, I'm very optimistic about Ahsoka, and I said this on the reaction thing yesterday. I'm very excited for the story that will unfold with Thrawn, Ezra, because that's all from Dave Filoni. He would have done that in animation either way, whatever the story decisions are there. But I'm scared about the execution. Visually already, it just looks.
Yeah.
The guy who helped develop the technology of the volume, Greg
Fraser.
Greg Fraser. Why did I want to say Brendan Fraser? I'm sorry, that's a different person. Greg Fraser. He just came out and said the volume doesn't work when you have it in daylight, like noon. Did you see this?
It looks best in like sunset or when the light is going down. Like,
yes.
But like as respected as Greg Fraser is, I love his cinematography, the Batman, Chef's Kiss. The only perspective I'd add to that is like that was when the volume was just created. We know it's been built and upgraded a few more times since then, so the technology could accommodate for it. But it depends on the skill of the cinematographer you have as well.
No, for sure.
The production
and Parks actually talks a lot about the volume in his documentary of the Mandalorian. So you go check that out because I learned a lot. But for me, I said this when the first image of Ahsoka came out from Disney Plus and all the shows coming out this year. It looks like Ahsoka is under like a turtle lamp. You know how when they have like a tank of turtles and you just have like one lamp and it's just full on bright in one direction. That's what it seems like to me. And even Sabine and Ahsoka just standing there in Lothal just feels and looks really, really, really fake. So that might pull me out of it a bit, but I'm not gonna sit here and say the story's gonna be bad, but visually it just might be really distasteful. So that's just me.
And a lot of that's based on the trailer too that we got.
Exactly. But I am excited about Dave Filoni taking inspiration from Timothy Zahn and all his work and stuff. I'm very excited about that. But yeah, execution wise, I'm not too sure. Sure. I wish, you know what? I'll just leave it there.
I'm definitely on the same page as you with like the visual things and the recasting of you know, some of our favorite characters with Ezra and Sabine and all that. But yeah, I think just from a storytelling standpoint, I think it's going to be super, super refreshing and hopefully something to get excited about because it's continuing a story that we've all wanted to see continue for a long time.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm the biggest Filoni fan here probably. The Jedi is what? Why are you laughing?
It's because I'm sorry. I just saw Austin's comment. If I can, real quick, if you could pull it up, Austin said, "I didn't know side." This scene is so funny. The
scene from season 2 is so good.
The way, what's her name? What's the actress's name?
That's Sasha Banks, and
yeah, the way she was like, "I didn't know sidekicks could talk," and then it's like, well,
Boba does a little bit of a chuckle before walking up to her. He's like, "This isn't the quacta calling the stifling slime." You know?
Oh, man, that is such a funny scene. I'll leave it there.
But to wrap my thought, the Jedi is my favorite episode of The Mandalorian and one of my favorite episodes of live action Star Wars television. So I have a lot of excitement for Ahsoka. So
yeah, no, for sure. Jumping back to rankings, I think we've got Mando season 3 at the top, Obi-Wan, then Book of Boba. No, I think you can, Mike. I think you can take this list seriously when you put it in reverse.
Jasper, just hold. I want everyone to grab this message from Jasper and just hold it up to a mirror, and it'll come out the other way. It'll come out reverse. That's the way it's meant.
Joel says, honestly, if I was being 100% subjective, I'd probably put it Kenobi and or Mando season 2, Mando season 1, Mando season 3, whatever. Interesting. Going on with that Ahsoka conversation, Matt says, I'll be honest, I'm a tad worried about Ahsoka. Hope my weird lizard brain is wrong. But now I'm a bit wary. Didn't know Matt was a lizard, but fair enough. Is it a joke I don't get?
No, I think he's just being modest.
He's being modest.
No, he's trying to say like all game devs have lizard brains.
You're a very smart guy. we love and appreciate you here. Matt
is a good friend now.
I feel the same, Matt. Worried about after the season, yeah. For sure. Poor Matt up in the top right there. Oh wait, no. I just got this. Sorry. I thought he was talking about you, Mike, and was just misspelt your name. Poor Matt. What just happened?
I don't know.
I think you put up
sorry,
comment
I did that again.
Look at it at the same time.
I just Parks, if you and I could do a rundown of this dialogue right here.
You really okay?
Let's do it.
Which one am I? Am I Boba Fett? I could do Sasha Banks. We could switch the roles up.
Okay.
I don't know. Sidekicks could talk.
Well, if that isn't the quacta calling the stifling slimy.
You'll be talking out of the window of a Bacta tank. Hire us now, Jon Favreau. There you go.
Sorry. All right. Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to do
everyone tune out now. Oh, look, we've fallen below double-digit viewers. Oh no. All right. Let's
Okay, real quick, as we're wrapping up here, I just wanted to mention 3 things. First of all, I guess let's just do a highlight of the season. Let's say something positive. Because I have wanted to say this all episode long, but as much as I dislike Mando season 3, something that I'll never forget and something that I'll forever be appreciative of is the return of Ahmed Best as Keller and Beck. I still think 100%. That's just one of the greatest Star Wars moments.
That's the Switzerland of this season. That's where we can all agree that was great.
Yeah, 100%. So that was my highlight. Mike, what was yours?
Getting that Hasbro mailer. Thank you to Hasbro for sending me that. I got this Bocatan helmet because of Mando season 3 and a Darksaber that, well, I can't even open anymore because it's destroyed canonically. But on a serious note, I think I'm most appreciative. Like, I've been listening to the soundtrack from Volley 1 a ton. Like, there's like some bangers in there. I think the music is definitely lacking this season, but Joseph surely still cooked up some good soundtracks. Like,
he had really good music last week.
ask Austin when Austin had arrived to Chicago for the con we attended. Him, our friend Davis, and our Star Wars dude, who you guys know, and his name's True. We were in my car, and thank you so much, Jasper. But we were in my car, and I think someone was like, play like some Star Wars tracks. I was like, oh, I know which ones, and I pulled up the Mandalorian ones, and I don't know how many miles per hour we're going, but it was just like we had the windows down. It was a really nice day, and I put on Attack on the Gauntlet, and it was just like upbeat, and we just all vibed to it, and everybody was just bobbing their heads. If we were just like listening to a new Lizzo song. There we go. Do you see that reference? Anyways, but I am appreciative of the music this season, and the action sequences have really never been better in the series. I think we really hit a high with a lot of the action sequences. Like, oh my god, like the fighter stuff that happened in episode 3, amazing. The Mandalorian stuff that happened in the finale, like all the fighting, that was great. That was great. So thank you, Jasper. I think Jasper had a stroke writing that, but but like I said, the action sequences were great, and I did love that Bocatan got explored the way she did. I definitely wanted more, but it was cool having her as a highlight. Like Katie Sackhoff really killed the role. Like she really did. Yep. Like I loved her acting in here, and yeah, that was just good stuff with Bocatan.
100 Parks highlight.
I have to pick just one. No, I'm joking. Because I know that's for you, Ari. That's the that you anyway. But no, the highlight of the season. Honestly, yeah, the Mythosaur, really cool moment. Loved seeing it. I love that we touched base with it a little bit at the end. I know some people had some theories about how it was going to be used, brought up. I don't think it's the last we've seen of it. We may not see it again for a while, but it's there, so it's in play. Other than that, I'd say, I watch so many shows with action these days, or movies with action. Like, you have to really be creative to make action interesting and compelling. And I was really like, there were so many moments in this show where I was ready to be completely checked out of it, because you can't do it. Like, you have to work really hard to make this original and interesting to watch. But they did that time and time again through some great space battles. This episode, you just had the mother load of Mandalorians flying through the sky, the armor going completely Kratos on people, which was so fun to watch. And the child deep inside me was screaming with joy watching a lot of that unfold. So it was really cool seeing all that. So yeah, I'd say that's probably the best part of the season.
Fair, yeah. And all right, I'll throw to you, Mike, first, or Mark, as you're being called in the chat. Season 4. Do you want it where you're at with that, and has your rating changed since we first started recording?
You mean season 3?
No, I'm saying season 4. Like, do you want it? Do you not? Honestly, because I know for me, I'm just like,
okay. Well, let me answer before you answer. Okay.
I know, but I was trying to get the ball rolling because you were so confused by the simple question. Sorry, honestly, you go on.
I've been update. I got a new name update. It's Mick. But I think what Matt was saying yesterday, he's like, honestly, if I'm being honest right now, and in the chat he said, I don't even think I want a season 4 of Mando. And I'm not, just because they messed up once, and they did mess up in Book of Boba, but just because they messed up once with this thing, maybe we could, because they were so responsive to our response to seasons 1 and 2 of Mando when John was putting this together, maybe they'll be responsive to all the people, of all the criticisms of this season, because it was, if anything, if you can't even say it was disappointing, it was underwhelming. And I don't expect 3-hour long episodes or this and that and this. I literally just want to have fun with Star Wars. Like, I literally, while I loved Andor and everything, I just was dying for Mandalorian, because I miss that Star Wars like pulpiness, the goofiness. Like, I just love that about Star Wars. I love that lighthearted storytelling. Doesn't have to be deep and rooted like Andor. It really doesn't. Like I told Ari on a podcast we did like a week ago, if if everything was like Andor, I would hate Star Wars because that's not why I like Star Wars. I love my Andors. I love my HBO series. I love my Rebels. Like if it was Rebels all the time, I would get sick of it eventually. I mean, look at with Clone Wars animation. I'm sick of it already. I'm like, let's do another. Let's roll another card. So I would get sick of it. So for me, I was looking for Mandalorian. I just want to have fun. But when there's all these notions where we can't even focus on what we're doing now, it's just frustrating. So if Mando season 4 is taking place after all this shit going on with the Mandoverse, if it takes place after all these events and it's gonna start a new chapter, yeah, I'll get a bit excited. But for right now, no excitement. Of course, I want to see it, but there's just no excitement right now. I just want to get over all this crap that we have coming up because this is not the MCU. This is not going to be some big climatic event. I know, even though that's what they're doing, it's just that's not how Mando started, and I really don't want it to go down the MCU route. Because it's like, yeah, MCU did it great with Endgame and everything, awesome. Now they're trying to replicate it, but they're struggling, and we can't even get there yet with Mando. We haven't even had a climatic event, and we're very struggling to get there. So anyway, so season 4, I'm not excited at the moment. I will be after all that crap is done. And is that all the questions you asked? And rating for this season?
Has your rating changed?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Parks, season 4, how are you feeling? And has your rating changed?
Rating hasn't changed. I mean, I was the one trying to get you guys to skew more positive here, but that's all right.
My rating's changed. It's gone down to 3.
Okay. Good for you. Anyway, no, season 4, like, honestly, I'm it's all right. I'm ambivalent about it. I don't, I mean, I think a big part of that is like, Star Wars, we have so much of it now, too much of it, very valid argument. And we are going to get Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, the Acolyte, and Andor and Bad Batch before we even get to Mandalorian, because all these things are in production or have filmed and are coming out and they're in the pipeline. And Mando is not filming, I think I read today, until like October. So like, I'm not really, Mando is so far over the horizon for me right now that, I'm not like, I like the idea that I'm gonna have to wait a long time before we touch base with this character in this part of the world again. Mind you, Ahsoka is in this corner of the universe, so is Skeleton Crew, but both of those seem to be offering different things than this, and they're being helmed by, Jon Favreau is executive producing, but Filoni is helming one, and John Watts is helming the other. So there's potential for something very different to happen in those stories. That's not what we're seeing here. I'm not like stoked about the fact that Favreau has said he's already written season 4. And, it's like, this whole season, we've all been sort of saying like, hey, Favreau, get more writers. And, if that ever happens, it won't happen in season 4 because it's already been written, So it's a bit sad. But also, like I said, it's so far over the horizon. I'm happy to wait. And there is such a open book status quo for Mando, the way this ends. Literally zooming in on that bit with Grogu eating the frog. I love that, by the way. Very cheesy, but I like it. That it's like you could do anything with him. Heck, you can take those Rangers of the New Republic stories that aren't getting used and make that the 4th season of The Mandalorian, where he is literally an independent contractor. He's a Ranger of the New Republic. And it'd be whatever, like we've done, they could do anything. I have no expectations. So there you go.
Ari, this one's for you.
We go. What's that for?
I was just fixing my eyebrow.
Fair enough. Yeah. My brain is just mush at this point, honestly.
It's pretty late. We've talked for, it's early for you.
He's been flayed. His mind has been flayed.
I'd say my light fell. Whoops. There we go. We're back, guys. I feel season 4, I am in no rush to watch it. I don't care for it at all right now. I want to break from The Mandalorian. Quite honestly, I'm going to stop talking about The Mandalorian on Instagram just because If you don't have anything good to say, stop.
Sorry, he just Ari has rode the hate train according to people, and it's just the train is derailed now, right, Ari? What did you say?
Yeah, the train derailed.
The train has arrived at its last stop.
3. Yeah, no, the train. Yeah, the train is just like it's at its last stop. Exactly right, Fox. Nah, look, honestly, I'm kind of sick of talking about it because it's like I prefer talking about the things I like in Star Wars. Right. But while it's on and airing, of course, I'm going to give my thoughts, especially while we're doing the podcast. But overall, I'm not going to add anything here that people haven't already heard. I didn't like season 3, and that's all. My rating hasn't changed, and that is what it is. Oh well, we go onto Ahsoka and Jedi Survivor and Visions and Skeleton Crew. And
that's true. Jedi Survivor's next week, and that's pretty exciting.
I'm excited for all that. So yeah, Mando season 3 didn't work for me, but it's not the end of the world. It's just Star Wars. But yeah. That pretty much wraps up our discussion. Parks, thank you so much for sitting here with us for more than 2 hours talking all this stuff.
Thanks for having me.
And not only for that, but for sitting with us throughout the season. I think you did 2 episodes with us, plus jumped in for Bad Batch as well. We appreciate that a lot. So, if say any closing thoughts or anything else you want to say, and let us know where people can find you, and of course what's coming up for ArTorr. And yeah, go for it.
You can find me on ArTorr on YouTube, of course. You can also follow me on Twitter as Parks Harmon, Instagram as Parks Harmon. Other than that, I'm working on an Indiana Jones video, but it's about I made a video on Raiders Lost Ark a few years ago. This video is about the sequels to Indiana Jones. I was editing it just before I came on here, actually. So you can tune into ArTorr probably sometime mid to early next month to check that out. Other than that, stay subscribed. There will be a lot of Star Wars videos later this year.
Absolutely, and can't wait to get into it. Mike, thanks as always for co-hosting this shindig with me. Is that a word? I don't know, I just made it up, or maybe not. Where can the good people find you?
It's a word.
Shindig. Yeah. I think I've heard that before.
It's a colloquialism, like mostly used in the United States, but yeah.
Yeah, there you go. We're going global with shindig.
Oh.
Going global. That's funny.
We might see that word appear up in the Mandalorian, but yeah, you guys can find me at @all_Star Wars. Thanks again to Parks. You guys don't know how much we love him around here for real. It's the other day I was walking and I was just on the phone with Parks. So we talk, outside the pod. So shout out Parks for real, because it's just great to have him. And I love this tradition that we have where it's like, it's just the finale. Like Parks has reserved that, but again, he stepped in a couple times to help us out in this season. So shout out Parks for real. Follow him. Go watch all his video essays. Like there's just no one out there like him. So go check that out. But for me, find me on @Star Wars. We're gonna be doing a lot of stuff on the YouTube channel and hopefully more streams. These streams are fun. We get to really connect with you guys. Like we've met people like Matt, Casper. We even get to talk to Ryan a lot. So it's JJ just fun. So
popped in tonight. Yeah.
Oh yeah, JJ. I mean everyone in the chat. Like it's fun. If you're listening on audio, seriously subscribe to the YouTube channel because we're gonna be doing more streams. So shout out to everyone from Joel and everybody. Just great stuff. So thank you for 100. Commenting along. Because you guys really helped us during that Lizzo episode. Me and Ari were like, I can only talk for this for 5 minutes, and you guys really guided the conversation. So yeah. How about you, Ari? Where can people find you and what's up?
Yeah, what's up? Not a lot. Find me at Star Wars_exchange, and of course on Twitter at the SW Exchange. No longer yelling about the Mandalorian season 3. But as just to echo what Mike said, thank you to everyone for Mark, everyone for tuning into the stream and all the chat. It keeps us going, and we really appreciate it. So shout out Matt, Ryan, JJ. JJ actually says, thanks for the stream. I've really enjoyed your reviews these past few weeks. I work long hours and podcasts really make the time fly. Aww. We appreciate that so much. We're glad we can make the time go by with you while you're at work.
Thank you, JJ.
Yeah, for sure.
Shout out mod team.
But shout out to the mods. Shout out to everyone. Great show. We'll see you all I don't know when we'll see you all next, but it'll be soon. Probably Jedi Survivor related. But yeah, until next time. Thank you all very much for watching. And as always, may the Force be with you always.
Bye-bye.